everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic back again with some more wrestling news, another wrestling news update. We have some news on Chris Jericho and his own thoughts on the ending of his New Japan run earlier this year. We have some news on Alexa Bliss and her recent partial inactivity on Monday Night Raw, and we also have news on Zack Ryder's injury and a personal update from the man himself on his own social media. So let's crack on and get straight into all of the news. First of all, let's talk about Chris Jericho. He recently had an interview with ESPN about the tail end of his New Japan run. Just to refresh everyone on what happened, basically Jericho showed up in New Japan shockingly while still under WWE contract towards the end of 2017. He issued a challenge to Kenny Omega and attacked him, and then the pair had a match at Wrestle Kingdom 12, a 5-star match, a really critically acclaimed match which Jericho lost. Kenny Omega won, and then Jericho the following night attacked Tetsuya Naito, apparently setting up or appearing to set up the next feud for him over in New Japan. However, things didn't pan out quite the way we all expected. Jericho then returned to WWE. He didn't return in a wrestling capacity, he merely appeared backstage at Raw 25 in a little segment and hasn't really been seen since, but has been confirmed as an entrant in the Greatest Royal Rumble, which is tomorrow. He also was originally scheduled to face Undertaker in that casket match when Rusev looked like he wasn't going to be a part of it, but then Rusev was reinserted back into the match, so Jericho is going to be in the Greatest Royal Rumble. So Jericho's had a very interesting and mysterious year, one broken up as well by the fact that he's often been doing gigs with his band Fozzy. Now in this ESPN interview, Jericho said that he spoke in kind of vague terms about the end of his New Japan run, but the way that he worded it kind of implies that it was more of a mutual decision or more of a decision made by himself rather than what we all thought it was, which was more of a contractual mix-up. Like basically he couldn't do these dates in New Japan simply because WWE wanted him back and he'd never really split from the company. Instead, Jericho talked about how sometimes a situation can look really appealing, and then when you look into it a little bit further, it's not going to go the way you quite want it to go, which seems to imply that maybe his vision for the feud with Naito didn't really match with New Japan's vision, and they just came to sort of a mutual falling apart. Not like I don't want to suggest that it was like an acrimonious one, but then Jericho just returned to WWE instead. Very interesting indeed, especially because Jericho took to Twitter and said at one point that unfortunately his dates for New Japan were up and we wouldn't see him over there anymore. A lot of people, including myself, took this as a work. I thought that Jericho was lying, as he often does on social media, in a good way to pop the fans and make things more exciting when he does eventually show up, wherever he decides to show up. But it may well have been legitimate. It may well have been a serious tweet, which is basically saying, look, I'm not going to be in New Japan anymore. I'm back in the WWE full time once he's finished touring with Fozzy. On the other hand, this is a little bit confusing. This interview could be Jericho working us as well. He could be saying, nah, I'm not going back to New Japan. He could be playing up the disappointment that he felt with how that ended, and then could pop up again when we least expect it. You can never quite tell with Chris, you can never quite tell with him, but I guess the main takeaway here is that Jericho wasn't too happy with how his New Japan run ended, but that it seemed to be a little bit more of a decision off his own back, at least what I've inferred from his ESPN interview. In other news, the Wrestling Observer newsletter has revealed why Alexa Bliss has been taking more of a limited role in the past few weeks on Monday Night Raw. She was part of this week's main event, but it was a big 5-on-5 tag team match featuring pretty much all of the women's division, or the majority of the Raw women's division, and she didn't do too much. She didn't, take any big bumps or anything, and apparently this is because of breast enhancement surgery, which she is currently, recovering from, having to take it easy. She doesn't want to risk, complicating things while her body's recovering, which is totally understandable. At the same time, it's probably fortunate that WWE decided to take the Raw Women's Championship off her because, she couldn't. I was about to say that Alexa couldn't really defend the title belt without actually wrestling, but Brock Lesnar seems to manage it, so shitting on Brock Lesnar. He would eat me alive. He would devour me. He would break my bones. And finally, some happy news from Zack Ryder, who revealed on Twitter recently that he will not have to undergo surgery for a recent injury sustained at a main event show in a match against Mike Kanellis. Zack took to Twitter the other day and, quite sadly revealed that he had sustained an injury and could miss out on some action. But in happy news, it looks like he doesn't have to undergo surgery at all. Often, surgery is always the turning point with injuries. If a superstar has to undergo surgery, then they're going to be on the shelf for quite a while, as we've seen with people in the past like Ciampa or Big Cass. But I think the fact that Zack doesn't have to undergo surgery is a good thing, and hopefully we'll see him get a storyline on Monday Night Raw. He was recently drafted to Raw in the Superstar shakeup, and so was Mojo Rawley as well. And their feud never really ended. I think the last thing we saw of it was Mojo eliminating Zack Ryder on the WrestleMania 34 pre-show in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Now, as I mentioned, that feud didn't really have a natural conclusion. There was no big blow-off because they kept on having little interactions, such as in that Battle Royal. And I think maybe because both are now on Raw and seem to have been deliberately drafted over there together, that it could well continue. We might even see another pay-per-view match between the two. That's all for now. Thank you very much for watching this news video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter at JackTheJobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic. And you can check out our Patreon as well if you want, patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never, ever forget, of course, to join us.